Welcome to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. Each week, She Rebel Radio brings you insights and advice from women entrepreneurs who transformed their prestige prisons into daring entrepreneurial success stories. Now, here is your host, Lulu Nins.
Welcome to episode 20 of She Rebel Radio with Alex Bailey, What It Takes for Women to Break the Mould and Humanise the Future. Alex is the CEO and co-founder of Bailey and French Ltd, a pioneer of the first strength-based performance programme rolled out globally to over 27 countries, and an international speaker in the application of positive psychology. Alex, it's amazing to have you with us. I understand that you've just come back, it may be from New York?
Yes, thanks, Lulu. Yes, I managed to see some fantastic speakers last week at the World Business Forum. Simon Sinek and Marcus Buckingham, Jim Collins, just to name a few, but also Randy Zuckerberg, the sister of Mark, who has really been championing female entrepreneurs. So a fantastic week, yeah. Amazing.
Good to know. I hope you're over the jet lag so far.
Yeah, definitely. Back in on Monday.
Yeah, good. Well, I'd love to start in terms of your background. You trained and began working in occupational psychology in large companies such as Aviva and American Express. What inspired you to start and pioneer a new way of doing things?
So I did train in occupational psychology, and I think obviously I was brought into roles because of that specific area, which at the time was very kind of quite rigid against the kind of 8 core areas of occupational psychology, registered with the BPS, but in all my roles was able to take on a larger role around organisational effectiveness, and allowed to then call upon any of those different areas and in many ways a combination of those to look at organisational problems and find solutions. Mm-hmm. And I think certainly from working in large complex organisations, matrix structured across different time zones, it was very obvious to me that there are a whole host of suppliers out there offering interventions that were all fairly similar, and so very much focusing on competing against each other, rather than really thinking and listening to what the client and the customer needed. And when you're in those situations and you're in a complex environment, having another very complex leadership theory to overlay to what's going on actually took a huge amount of cognitive load. So there was a large part in me that wanted to, when we really found Bailey and French, was find ways that were really simple and practical for organisations to work with us to help humanise that world of work in a way that really felt human and didn't feel full of jargon, or that there was kind of expert psychologists coming in to kind of tell us what we were doing wrong, but really to focus on how we can step up and do things differently. And that's not always about a lovely new complex model. It's actually in many cases was the simplicity that allowed people to see and feel the difference.
Amazing. So yeah, the simplicity, and by the sounds of what you're saying in terms of providing a solution to those that need it instead of competing with somebody else about what they're providing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like me, as you know, I come from a legal background. You come from a traditional discipline of education, psychology, and psychology and law are a field founded by men. Do you think that the lack of women in the early stages affected the early pioneering of these fields and institutions, and that there were gaps in the overall thinking of emotion and emotional resonance because of that?
Well, yes, I do. I think it's probably overwhelming that will have had an impact in terms of just simply the bias to the ways of thinking about humans and their place in the world has been, so prominent. And I would say certainly, that's still bias and discrimination that I face on a daily basis as a female CEO. you wouldn't believe the number of meetings I walk into where I'm not greeted or spoken to in the same way that the other men are introduced. And then when they find out that I'm a female CEO, there's almost a bit of an apology. Oh yes, please do come and sit down. And it's very obvious to them as it is to me that they've made some major faux pas. And it happens all the time. I'm often escorted into meetings as if I'm the PA to someone else in the room. So I think that definitely has had a bias. If I think back to my kind of early theoretical input when I finished my master's in occupational psychology, and actually all the way through, every year I was attending the British Psychological Society conferences and the division of the occupational psychology, and pretty much every single session was led by a man. It was them that were challenging the thinking around the theory. It was them that were asking people for questions, and the audience was often full of young women. And I think that certainly did have an impact on my thinking around the industry. I think it's a small industry. And I think that there is much more opportunity now to take a more inclusive approach and a holistic perspective and embrace the unique variance of everyone's contribution, regardless of gender or any other difference, that really should be creating a diverse approach to psychology in the UK and abroad, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, like the law lecture theatres full of young women are learning traditional disciplines and then, potentially bringing our influence into that. Do you think it's important that women in particular are out there breaking the mould of more traditional ways of thinking with those traditional disciplines, psychology in particular, for you?
Yes, I do, but I think much broader than that. I think it's about everybody having that possibility. I think interestingly, it's not necessarily led by the profession. The call for more diversity is probably led more by client-led work in the field of occupational and business psychology. Our clients are operating in a much more diverse way and approach, and therefore they are calling on more diverse suppliers. And so they will want and will demand a much more open and diverse supplier list, and want to see that diversity reflected in the people who are actually supporting the organisations to evolve. So yes, I think that women are breaking that mould, but I think there's a demand-led piece there, certainly, by organisations that are taking that brave step forward and being pioneering in bringing through much more diverse pieces of work into their organisations that affect hundreds of thousands of people across the world.
Yeah. So again, going back to that, meeting the needs of the client who have a diverse supply, they're looking for that diversity in who they're asking for, which is great to see.
Absolutely.
Great to see the change. Absolutely. So Bailey and French work at the cutting edge of positive psychology, pioneering the most innovative solutions to transform both careers and organisations. What does it take to pioneer such a new way in huge organisations who have their own ways of doing things?
It's a good question, actually, because when you're pioneering something, you are challenging people's existing ways of thinking about their organisations and about potential solutions. And certainly from being internal in organisations and working as an external consultant, I've seen large organisations work on a real fear basis, creating burning platforms for people to see that essentially they have to change and transform immediately, or else the company's going to fold. And I think that kind of fear-based approach has really had its limits, to be honest. I don't think people want to be operating in that space continuously, feeling that they have to transform and be different and not be themselves because something bigger and nastier is going to come along and wipe them out. And I think the way that we like to work in terms of pioneering new ways of thinking is, rather than kind of present things and then ask people their opinions based on their experience, is really give people an experience of what we're talking about differently. So that rather than trying to position them against what they think, we will bring interactive elements into our first meetings with our clients and ask them what they think and how they feel about doing things differently, because they are the experts in their own context. I can't possibly be an expert in the challenges of a CEO in the financial services industry and insurance, for example. It's only their unique situation and context that they can understand. And so if I bring an experience and an offering and something more insightful for them to consider how that might change their context, they're going to be much more receptive and open to thinking about new ways of doing things. And that has by far been, for me, not only just a more successful approach to pioneering innovation, but also more respectful, because actually it's saying I respect the fact that the client is the expert here, not me. And not us. We have different ways of doing things, and we can tailor and adapt those to fit into the context of the client. And I think people feel that they feel included. And actually, it's their company, it's their business, it's what they're trying to do. And actually, some of these new ways of thinking can be tailored to fit their own environment. And it's that tailoring piece, really listening and understanding clients, I think, that makes the biggest impact.
Absolutely. And I love that inspiring people to be receptive and open by the experiences that you're bringing, instead of leading with fear that something has to change. Otherwise, there's a big hairy monster around the corner.
Absolutely.
And that inclusivity. Who inspires you and continues to inspire you to be a pioneer for the future and humanising the way that we work?
I've got kind of a long list of books of business writers and leaders that have been working in this field of leadership and performance and well-being for many years. And the likes of several of them who I saw last week, Simon Sinek, Marcus Buckingham, Jim Collins, really fantastic leaders in this field and pioneers. And I think what I really like about their approach and what inspires me about their approach is their boldness to say the truth and to speak the truth. So they're really talking on behalf of the human. And I think that is going to be so much more important for the future. We are hurtling towards a really radically transformed future based on the digital and technological advancements that are taking place at the moment. And it feels like actually we're potentially losing the art of human connection and meaningful connections and conversations. And unless there are people out there championing that human piece to work, then I fear really for future generations. And I have my own daughters who I want to experience a human world of work, and I've got 10 years before they enter that world of work, so I've got some urgency to make a difference, which is really our compelling vision, really to have a bigger impact and reach as we possibly can. And I think it's those people who are out there and boldly saying, this is the actual truth, this is what really works in organisations, this is what doesn't, and why are we still doing them, and challenging people to go that step further and to be radical. Because it's so easy for us to sit back and say, oh yeah, great, we've got agile methodology. Yeah, great, we're introducing mindfulness to some sessions before we get into a leadership meeting. But is that really enough? Are we really happy with that status quo? Do we really think that is going to make the biggest difference to the rapid pace of change that we're facing at the moment? And I just don't think it is. I don't think we're being realistic enough. We can't just focus on good enough. We've got to focus on much better and be really radical in doing so. And it's only when we're able to be honest and truthful about our ambition and truthful about the human experience will we really be able to make those significant shifts that are going to be required in the workplace. And that really does inspire me, because we have to leave this place in a better situation for our future generations, our people and our planet, everything. We have to do better.
Absolutely. And you can hear how strong your why is. And how did your purpose unfold for you as you built Bailey and French and pioneered these new solutions with humanising the future is such an important thread for you? How did that kind of unfold for you?
I have worked for big businesses like American Express, like Aviva, and they're wonderful. And I've been part of, the conversations about people and profit and customer on a macro level. But I've also been part of and seen and close to people who have had much smaller businesses who are similar size to ours, who have been really fueled by private equity, investors, shareholders, to grow the business as rapidly as possible, focused entirely on the profit and sell off as soon as you can. And it feels like lots of startups, particularly in Brighton in the south, are really are fixated on that purpose to set up quickly, grow big, and then sell out, make your millions, and walk away. Mm-hmm. And it never really sat well with me at all. I've seen businesses that have sold, and I've seen what happens to the people that set them up, the passion that went into making them successful, the communities that they served, the suppliers, local suppliers that they felt part of that business. And it didn't seem right. It doesn't sit with me in terms of how clients want longer term relationships. They want to be part of something bigger and much more purposeful than simply driving profit. It didn't really resonate with me at all. And been looking at different models more recently and found some different movements going on that are really about purpose-led organizations. And we're very much down that road now, I think, in terms of having our compelling vision and our reason for being and on our cause. And at the core of that is that we set up this business organically with nothing other than private investment. Mm-hmm. And there's no investors or shareholders telling us what to do. And because of that, we have ultimate freedom to do the right thing. And the right thing for me feels that we need to set this business up for 100 years plus. This business needs to serve the purpose of humanising the workforce in whatever way is the right way in 10, 20, 30 years' time. And that is the longer term vision, and it's far more important to put the people that are part of this business and the community that we serve and the suppliers and the clients that we work with first, above and beyond our profit, because ultimately we're going to do more good in the world in that way. And I really couldn't forgive myself if I sold out in a couple of years and the business was just dissolved into yet another psychology consultancy out there. And the big ones seem to be all hoovering up all the little ones at the moment. And I feel very strong and very passionate about the fact we just don't have a price. We are here to stay. And I think that's a good news message for our people and for our clients and everyone we work with and together. Because I think we can actually change the world. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but I think there's a huge amount of impact that we can make. And I believe we're well on the way to doing that.
Absolutely. And there is this kind of conflict, isn't there, with the digital world, as you say, speeding things up so much, encouraging people to make as much money and profit as quickly as possible and then getting out, versus the sustainability of success over the long term and creating change over the long term that we can pass down to the next generation instead of destroying, which is what has happened with profit-led businesses over the last 100 years in particular.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, a lot of our programs are, 1, 2, 3 years long. For many businesses that are planning to sell, that's just simply not feasible to sell those types of programs and work with people. And cultural evolution takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. One training workshop doesn't change a whole company. It's got to be, consistent and consecutive over a long period of time to actually shift and enhance things for the better of everybody.
Absolutely. And what would your advice be to other people, other women who are the listeners of this podcast who want to, change the traditional way of doing things in their industry and start a new way of doing things differently? What would your advice be?
I think my advice would probably be to listen to your intuition. Whenever I've gone against it and made decisions beyond my intuition, I've always looked back and said, I can't believe I didn't listen to myself. I knew what the right thing was. Mm-hmm. I knew what I should have been doing. But something else influenced me to decide otherwise. And actually now that voice has become much, much stronger and much louder in me.
Is there anything being able to, sorry to interrupt, is there anything that you do to tune in to that intuition, or is it just building the trust with it?
I think I do regularly reflect and ask myself the question around, is this the right thing? Is this what I really want to be known for? Is this what I really want to be held up against my name? Even the small things. I know it sounds funny because the small things will add up to the big things. So, but yeah, I think it is that. I think it is really important that you're able to just dial the volume up on your own voice. So many meetings I sat in early in my career, and I was sitting there just thinking to myself, gosh, thinking what someone else was saying and thinking, no, that sounds wrong. I wouldn't do it that way, and I wouldn't think that that's the right way for the company. And yet I didn't have a strong enough voice to actually say it. And then someone else would, and they got praised for that. And I sit there thinking, why didn't I just say what I was thinking? And that's a lot of advice actually that I give to some of the young women who join us. Mm-hmm. If you are thinking something in a meeting, say it. Mm-hmm. And it's a really simple thing, because I want to hear everyone's thoughts, and that we have to have that diversity of thinking in every single conversation we have, and that's the art of human connection that we're losing. If we can't even have the ability to voice what we're thinking, then we're miles away, aren't we? And I think it's about everyone being able to have that voice and know that their voice will be heard. And will shape whatever is taking place. If you're there, you have a contribution. You're there for a reason. So say it.
Do you have any
and I think
insights?
That's really different.
Do you have any insights why women, and young women in particular, do struggle to say it and just think it?
Yeah, I do notice. I do notice that, and I don't. It's a really interesting concept. I do notice that younger women avoid conflict. Mm-hmm. Now. I think I was the same. I think I was nervous about upsetting anyone. And I don't even have a very strong kind of empathy strength. I can do empathy as a skill, but it's not a natural thing for me. I'm more challenging and brave, and I can be bold and say things. But even for me, at my age, it's taken me, 15, 20 years to get to the point where I am bold enough to say exactly what I'm thinking in the moment. But I do see, I think there are circumstances where younger women actually avoid conflict and feel that if they are voicing their opinion and it's different to other people's, that potentially is seen as a bad thing rather than seen as an opportunity for growth for everybody. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely, there's conditions we need to create where actually that isn't the case, where people do feel that their challenge is welcomed, that it's seen as a building block rather than something detrimental. And I think that's definitely something I champion, constantly asking questions, who's got more to contribute? What do they really think about this? And maybe different ways of doing that rather than having to voice it, but being opportunities to kind of write things down or contribute in different ways, which is one of the reasons actually I like the online webinar approach to large meetings. If people can't attend face-to-face, at least through the chat function and through the question and answer function, people can say what they think, even if they haven't got the chance to voice it out loud because someone else is louder or talking more.
Mm-hmm. You feel that allows more of an opportunity for people to speak up than in a normal meeting, as it were.
Meetings, yeah, sometimes, yeah. You can. It's about the platform for me, platform for that meaningful connection. And that human connection is absolutely critical, because people won't be able to take big leaps. They have to have a platform to be able to take that step up. And the amount of times I hear leaders say, oh, these people really need to step up. And I think, well, you need to just give them a platform and they will. Mm-hmm. But they're chastised for not doing that and then failing. So it is an interesting one, that one.
Absolutely. And you've said a few times about being radical, being bold, and finding your confidence to do that. How did that happen for you? Or do you have advice for other women who do want to be bold and radical, but they're not sure how they can start to do that? Is it just something that comes with age for us as women?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it should be an age thing. I think it is an age thing, particularly for my generation. But I see more platforms available for people now. So perhaps there's more opportunity now for people to be bold and brave. But again, I think it needs to be based on a solid connection. I think in this, obviously, the digital kind of world that we work in, and people are always looking down at their devices and thinking they've got, hundreds of friends on Facebook and Twitter and followers, etc. But they're all very superficial connections. They're not really deep connections. I think people only are really brave and bold when they feel that they've got that support network of people who really believe in them.
Mm-hmm.
My advice definitely for other generations would be to build that network around you, in work, outside of work, in different friendship groups, is know where you've got those really strong connections and test your boldness with those groups first, because it will be that and the kind of reconfirmation from those groups that will help people go, actually, yeah, that's brilliant. Why didn't you say that? You should say that. And it gives you the confidence. Equipping people is one thing, but the confidence part is a whole other piece. And I think that's absolutely core. Knowing what people are really good at, helping people do what they're really encoded to do. Not just all the skills they pick up along the way, but what makes them different and unique, and do that in a really, really good way, and bring that confidently through meaningful connection.
Yeah, and as you say, different platforms that we have now, it does enable us to find our networks and the people that really do resonate with who we are and what it is that we're saying. We have a lot more choice now, don't we, to find those people that support our ideas.
Exactly. So use the technology as the platform, but not as the end game. So, for example, like meetup groups, there's some fantastic meetup groups out there. And I met Joshua, my co-founder, through a meetup group for Action for Happiness, a charity we were both passionate about and supporting. And if I hadn't used that technology, that to find that there was a meetup group in Brighton and go and explore it, and for him to do the same, we wouldn't have had that platform for the meaningful connection that we had face to face. And it's about taking it to that next level, using those platforms wisely and not relying on them for kind of superficial connections, but making them stronger.
Yeah, and by the sounds of it, there, of following your passions and things that you're excited about, going to meetups, and that's where you'll meet the people that you may collaborate with and will move your ideas forward together.
That's it. Find your tribe. Find the people that are passionate about the things you're passionate about. That's the wonderful situation that we're in now, is the kind of everything at our fingertips, is that we can bring people closer together in different ways, and hopefully do that in a really positive way.
Absolutely. And to find your compelling reason in terms of your business, how do you ground in for you on a daily basis your why? Because you're so passionate about it. How do you connect with that, or do you take the time to connect with it on a daily basis?
I do, actually. In the situation I'm in now, kind of 5 years into business, it is, the days can be incredibly full of urgent and important stuff, and a huge amount of decisions come my way. And whilst obviously there are other people in the business who are accountable for making those decisions, it does feel like some of the bigger ones are kind of directed to me. And I think a lot of the time I do check in with that and try and make those decisions in line with that bigger purpose, because ultimately that's why I'm here, and it's so threaded and just completely entwined in everything we do, that it's almost hard to hide away from it. I think sometimes people have their whys and they find it easy to keep that kind of private and hidden, but actually, in terms of sharing that, I expect my leadership team to hold me accountable to my why all the time. And we do that. We do regularly, and we do it really positively in terms of giving very, very specific feedback about how we see people acting and behaving in line with our beliefs, and our why for the business and our purpose. And that really keeps it alive. And even when we're out on the road, we have a Yammer communication platform to stay in touch with people. So today's like today, when it's pouring down with rain here in Brighton, we've got consultants out all over the place delivering fantastic solutions to our clients. But being able to check in when they get back on the train and say, wow, that went really well, this happened, and being able to feel the support of everybody back here saying, well, that's brilliant, because actually that's another reinforcement point, that's another point of reach in terms of getting our message out there and making those human connections with more and more people across the world.
Absolutely. It's keeping your team connected with your why. And it acts as a real decipher for those decisions, by the sounds of it, that you need to make on a daily basis to reconnect with that. And that helps you move forward.
Absolutely.
So what is next for you, and what is next for Bailey and French with moving forward in the future?
Well, yeah, that's a Really good question, actually, very timely, because it's been our kind of 5-year anniversary this year. We've hit all our targets that we set 5 years ago, which is fantastic to kind of look at our original business plan from startup and feel that actually we've done what we said we would do. And so we're at a kind of inflection point now, thinking about, okay, so what are we really here to do, and what can we really shift and change in the future? And we are looking ahead to 2020 with basically the birth of a new focus that's going to be called Team Flow, which is very much going to be a culmination of all the work that we've done over the last 5 years, all the things that worked really well, all the insights and data from hundreds of thousands of people that we've worked with around performance, around well-being, around strengths, around really helping people feel that they are able to be themselves and be human in work. And we're really excited, actually, that we're in design phase now and in production of a new solution that really brings all of that together. And hopefully will be, again, globally scalable with a variety of different options that play to client requirements and client needs, so that it can easily fit in, but be very radical in terms of going beyond any existing kind of high performance models and approaches, beyond any kind of different types of well-being practices, and really focus on getting teams to a point where they are working in harmony, in beautiful harmony, really, to be able to perform really well as teams. I think too much emphasis is put on the shoulders of creating high-performing individuals. And in this world with challenges that we all face every single day, in and outside of work especially, our well-being is affected if we are constantly focused on an individual introspection level. And so everything needs to shift now towards really thinking about a supportive and collaborative team that can work harmoniously together and support the individual requirements for every single person that's part of that team, to ensure that not only are people really able to perform sustainably into the future, but are able to perform as humans and really feel that they are able to be themselves. So that's all coming in 2020, and it's incredibly exciting.
Very exciting, radical approach. And yeah, I love that in terms of, supportive and collaborative teams versus a high performing individual and all that pressure that's put on one person.
Yeah, we see, the high levels of stress and anxiety, depression, burnout, loneliness. People are really struggling, and we just got to do better, and we can. This is the good thing. There's loads of research out there now. The field of positive psychology is a whole new paradigm in terms of working with what's right with people rather than trying to fix what's wrong with them. Mm-hmm. And that in itself is just such a significant shift to think about people in a whole new way. So thriving and evolving and growing, and being able to help people feel that they're in the right roles, doing the right things that they were encoded to do, and feel that they're, a valued, contributing human being in this ever-changing world.
Yeah, and it's exciting. I've even seen, from my background in terms of the legal profession, conversations that are happening that I never expected would happen in that field. And I quite often say, to the courts, you weren't a human being, you're kind of a cog in a big machine. And whilst I often saw my job as humanising the client in court, that was at cost of dehumanising myself. So it's great to see these conversations that are happening across the board, and Bailey and French pioneering such incredible work within it.
Thank you. We're really enjoying it as well. So I think that's part of it, isn't it? It's like people say, you've got to enjoy the journey. Wherever we look back, even if it's a day or a week short-term perspective, we're constantly astonished at how far we're moving at such a rapid pace here. So, and really blown away by our incredible clients who really, really do want to do better for their people. And my hat off to them, really, because they're being as bold and brave as we are, and really taking some significant radical steps. And they're creating the demand, and that's a fantastic place to be.
Absolutely. So you've said what's next for Bailey and French. How about you in terms of speaking and things that you're doing? Anything exciting coming up?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. We've got a variety of different events coming up. So yeah, I do some speaking, but also everyone in our team has their own kind of particular area of expertise and specialism and personal interests, and they go out and do their own speaking slots too on psychological capital, on flow, on all kinds of pieces of work. So we've got a variety of events coming up. We do quite a lot of work with the CIPD. They're one of our kind of strategic partnerships, and we love working with particularly the student populations, and doing various lectures at universities as well, potential partnerships with the Innovation Centre at the University of Sussex. So just really, really exciting things on the horizon. I think Team Flow is going to be the big thing next year for us. So hopefully we'll have a series of events where we can get more people along. But hopefully running our own podcasts and live streaming some of our events, I think is going to be an opportunity in the future, trying to innovate in that space too.
Absolutely. Lots of exciting things for a new decade that we're starting.
Yes, how exciting.
I know. I only realised that a few months ago, and I was like, wow, yeah, it's a new decade. And I think there's been lots of groundwork happening, in the last 5 years, and really ready to leverage and move forward. So where can we find you, Bailey and French, and you for those that are interested in working with you as a team?
Well, the best place is on our website. We've got a whole host of information. In fact, if you wanted to spend 24 to 36 hours just delving through information, there should be plenty of it on the website for people to find. And that's just simply baileyandfrench.com. There's loads of different forms on there that you can complete and get in touch with specialists around different areas of our work. And we often talk to people for a very long time before we do any work with them. And we always invite people to get involved with a variety of different events and things coming up. We have a newsletter that's got data and insights and research that we work with, as well as sharing some success stories from our clients. People love to know what other clients in the industries are doing. So you can sign up for that again on our website. We have quite a large presence on LinkedIn as well. We have a LinkedIn page there. So again, lots of updated information there, as well as on our Twitter feed. Please, any which way you want to get in touch with us. We love a human conversation and a connection.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing about your story. And Bailey and French, have an amazing rest of the day.
Thank you, Lulu.
Thanks for listening to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. She Rebel Radio is executive produced and hosted by women's advocate and coach, Lulu Mins. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. You can find Lulu Mins on Facebook and LinkedIn at Lulu Mins, and on Instagram at LuluMins_biz. Until next week, keep rebelling against the rules and designing success your way.